My roommate's parents kept showing up unannounced to check on her until I realized they were actually checking on me. I moved in with Bethany about a year ago, found through a mutual friend from college. Her parents lived about an hour away and visited occasionally, which seemed normal enough at first, dropping off homemade food, helping with random apartment fixes. Typical supportive parent stuff. The visits started increasing in frequency after a few months, sometimes twice a week, always framed as coming to see Bethany, but something about the pattern felt slightly off. They'd often arrive when Bethany wasn't even home, staying to chat with me instead of leaving or waiting outside. Her mom, Carol, started asking me specific questions during these visits. Not really about Bethany, more about how I was doing, how work was going, whether I'd eaten dinner yet. Small things that felt oddly personal for someone I'd only met a handful of times through her daughter. I mentioned it to Bethany once, half joking about her parents seeming more interested in my life than hers lately. She laughed it off, saying her mom was just naturally warm with everyone, but I noticed Bethany seemed slightly puzzled by it too, like she'd noticed the same shift I had. The visits kept happening, always centered around me in ways that started feeling less coincidental. Carol brought extra groceries, specifically things she remembered me mentioning I like. Her dad, Frank, fixed a cabinet hinge in my room that I hadn't even gotten around to mentioning needed repair, somehow already aware it was broken. One evening, Carol showed up while Bethany was out with friends, and instead of leaving when she learned Bethany wasn't home, she asked if she could just sit and talk with me for a bit. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours, mostly her asking gentle questions about my family, my childhood, whether I had people I could rely on if things got hard. Something about the specificity of her questions made me quietly uneasy, not in a threatening way, but like she already knew answers to things I hadn't actually told her. I asked directly, as gently as I could, why she seemed so specifically focused on checking in on me during these visits. Carol went quiet for a long moment before asking if we could sit down properly to talk. She explained that a few months into me living with Bethany, she'd overheard a phone call I'd had in the kitchen with my own mother, one that had gotten fairly heated, revealing pieces of a strained, distant relationship with my own family that I'd never fully discussed with anyone in the apartment. Carol said it reminded her of her own sister's experience growing up, someone who'd had a similarly difficult family situation and never had extra support stepping in during those years. She'd decided, quietly, and without making it a whole conversation, that she wanted to be a steady presence for me too, not replacing my own family, just making sure I had somewhere warm to land if I needed it. I sat with that explanation, feeling something crack open in my chest that I hadn't expected. Nobody outside of a couple close friends had ever picked up on how difficult things with my family actually were, let alone quietly built a support system around it, without ever making me feel pitied or exposed. I told Carol I hadn't realized how much those visits had actually been helping me until she explained the reasoning behind them clearly. She said I didn't need to thank her, that some people just end up needing an extra set of parents somewhere along the way, and she didn't mind being that if I wanted her to be. Bethany found out about the real reason behind her parents' visits around the same time I did, and instead of feeling strange about it, she just hugged me and said she was glad her family had found another person worth showing up for. Carol and Frank still visit just as often. These days, nobody pretends the visits are really about checking on Bethany anymore.